Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. For me and for all Jehovah's Witnesses worldwide, it was Jesus Christ himself who was set up as an intermediary between us and Allah. As I studied and the further I went in, I became an unbaptized minister in the Jehovah's Witnesses. This means that although not a full member, I was one of those annoying people that came around on your Sunday with a knock on the door, big smile on the face, and those brochures that you probably threw in the bin later. But I studied the Bible and learnt what I thought was truth. I became angry when the Trinity was discussed. I learnt what was to become the basis of my beliefs for the next 8 years. At age 16, however, I began to fall from the church. Peer pressure reared its ugly head. It was first that the people at school, my friends, my peers, they invited me to their house, and I felt very shy to refuse. As I progressed further into the group at school, however, I felt that I did not want to miss out on all the fun in high school. To begin with, I would only half participate in the wrongdoing. For instance, I would go to parties, but I'd never drink. I would listen to heavy music, but only that with a half-decent meaning. I would have a girlfriend, but I'd never go all the way. But as is well known, and I see the wisdom in Islam forbidding even the beginning of these evils, one thing led to another. Before I knew it, I was merely another number perpetuating the pointlessness of the youth in our society. During high schools, I attended parties and I became drunk. I moved on from high school and I acquired a full-time job, but I only worked for the weekend, where to spend hundreds of dollars a night at a nightclub was not as rare as you would think. I joined a band, I had a series of girlfriends, and I did many despicable things, which I trust Allah has forgiven me for, and I will not raise here. Still, even through all this, even though I fell away from the church, I clung to my belief as a Jehovah's Witness. While in Queensland, I began a long-term relationship with a girl, and we did so since high school. We did many wrong things. We lived together unmarried. With the frightening regularity of typical girlfriend-boyfriend relationships, jealousy, arguments, splitting up, getting back together, splitting up, getting back together. This continued over for quite a few years. Eventually, however, we made a decision together, which was to split us up even further than we did before. She moved, of all places, to Tasmania. As I thought I had nothing else in the meantime, I did not practice my beliefs as a Jehovah's Witness. My life felt empty. After 6 months and an over-the-phone phone engagement, braving the cold and the two-headed jokes, I moved myself to Tasmania. During the last 6 months of my stay in Queensland, I got heavily involved in Japanese import cars. And perhaps many brothers here are familiar with them: Skylines, Supras, etc. My mother always said boys never grow up just the size of their toys. Once I moved down to Tasmania, I began my own business selling Japanese import cars for a fee. In the meantime, I worked full-time, and through the car scene, they call it blockies in Tassie and lappies up in Queensland. You know, when you go around in cars, got a sick burnout, bro, you know, this kind of thing. What do they call it here? Does anybody know? No? Oh, okay. Anyway, I involved myself very heavily in that. Through the cars, I increased my business and became friends with several people, including Brother Luqman, which inshallah you would have heard his story on Thursday. Still, my life in parties continued, though not at the same pace as in Queensland. These parties saw our depravity worsen, however. The combination of alcohol and the mixing of sexes led us to worse and worse things, and I remain with the trust that Allah has forgiven all of us. My supplier for my business was based in Queensland. I was too far away. I searched for a closer alternative, and I answered a car ad that I found in Unique Cars. Little did I know that this phone call would be far more important to me than just business. After several calls with the person who made the ad, we arranged a meeting in Melbourne to establish a business relationship. Now came the first surprise that Allah had lined up for me in order to open up my mind. I'll have to explain something here. Importing was a glamour business in the most parts. and also due to the fact that this meeting we're about to have and this business was dealing with imports for a long time, and it was to open a business relationship, I had attempted to dress the part. I flew to Melbourne, decked out in the best semi-casual clothes I owned. I sat on the plane, nervous and paranoid about any fleck of dirt or any baby that was coming near me. I arrived and I touched down, and I looked for the hair slicked back, jewellery wearing, clean-shaven business machine that the other guy must have been. I heard someone say, "Are you David Verney?" "Yes," I said, and I turned around. Now let me tell you what I found, may Allah reward the brother. No flash, no glitz. A man with a weightlifter's build approached me. His clothing was clean and tidy, but he had an old jacket on, the kind of jacket that you'd wear out if you didn't have anything else, and he wore tracksuit pants. This guy did not seem to care for the glitz that I was expecting, but that was not the worst part. This guy had a massive beard. I was only just getting over the fact that I was so incredibly overdressed that we were in the car park before I knew it. Left and right I looked for the Skyline or the Supra or even a Silvia. No steed of that character did I find. We stood in front of a $500 X-taxi with a squeak in the wheel and a wobble through the steering wheel at 70 k's that felt like he hit turbulence in a Cessna. Okay, I thought, I can handle this. We pulled into a service station where I wandered over to get a bottle of water. I was beginning to pull together as my business partner said that we're on our way to pick up a Supra from the wharf. As I got in the car and this ran through my head, I remembered my manners. "Would you like a drink?" I asked. "No, I can't. My religion says I have to fast during the day. I am a Muslim, and we fast from sunrise to sunset during Ramadan." I think I made it sound like, and then decided to leave the questions out. He was clearly a little strange, and I did not want to know anything about his religion. After all, weren't the Muslims those bearded weirdos who were the worst threat to the West? Didn't they sit in the corner of their mosques or whatever they called, say, "Allah Akbar, death to the West, death to the West"? Weren't these the religious fanatics that everyone feared? It's interesting that I knew this, I thought to myself later, yet I never actually researched into the Muslims, nor did I take an interest in them religiously. This information was still in my mind, although I never actively searched for it. Anyway, I knew the best thing was to keep it strictly business. I didn't want to know a thing about their crazy religion. We drove to his house, we got out of the car, and we walked up to the door. The next thing we know, we opened the door. And then I was shell-shocked. I was absolutely floored. It was not that this lovely near-new brick house was clean and tidy, with an almost absence of the stuff that you'd expect a successful young businessman to have. His TV was small and old. His speakers were big, but even older. No, what overcame me was a feeling of peace that I have not felt before. I am sure that it was the most peaceful feeling that I had ever had up until that day. The brother led me through to his garage, which was set up for a bedroom/lounge room/car parts area. On the table, I saw a Time magazine with Osama bin Laden on the cover. The brother, may Allah reward him, he got up and he said, "I've got an important call to make." Allah knows, but my first impulse normally would to leave the magazine on the table, turn away in disgust, and suppress any questions that would accidentally come into my mind. But in that atmosphere of peace, where my mind already had many wake-up calls, the questions flooded in. It was about 2 or 3 a.m. that night, with several brothers and myself, may Allah reward them all, in the kitchen, after we had spent hours of questions and answers.